more widely known as a vicar in the city, and Brenton Whittenbury, a new member and distinguished businessman from around town, have so much to say, they needed both of them to say. But we also have C.P. Ropati here, who's going to assist them. C.P. is here as a trainee. They captured her in Samoa and brought her back. So, without more ado, I might ask John and Brenton and C.P. to join me here at the podium. You all want to stand together? They're going to do it one at a time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Rotarian guests. I'd like to say it is indeed a privilege and pleasure to be here today to address the issue about the visit to Tonga. Before I go any further, I must acknowledge Carol Walsh from the Hospital Club, I'm sure you know her husband Darcy, because without her stimulation, without her forecourts, making sure we got on the buses on time, got up on time, this probably would not have happened. It probably was some 2 years in the planning, but I'm delighted to report that I think we have sort of achieved some of our goals. I'll address more the medical side of our little venture to Tonga, and I'll ask Brenton to talk from the Rotarian aspect. I think it's a very important part of this whole exercise. I'd like to take this mic out of the stand so I can go away from the projector slightly. So, this, I must emphasise, was a pilot study to basically visit to Tonga and to evaluate the hearing status in children of the age of 6 and 7 years. This was under the acronym of HEARS, which is the Hearing Evaluation Assessment Implementation Service, and is stressed under the pilot study. I'm just going to go through some of the basics today, in case some of the members here were not present when we attended last time. So for those who may have looked what happened. Tonga is out here, the point is not working, it's north-east of New Zealand, so the team flew from Adelaide to Auckland and then moved on to Tonga, having an overnight in Auckland. That's the main island of Lofa. We were greeted there by members of the Rotary Club and felt very welcome, barking a word go. It's not a big place, a lot of walking done, so we came away, despite the wonderful food, somewhat lighter because of all the walking we had to do. The basic construction of the team was the test population, of course, which in this situation was the school children. And then once the school children entered into the pilot study, they were examined by either myself or one of the audiologists as chosen. And then from that went into a hearing screening program. In the team we had 2 audiologists, that was Tim Parr from Kidman Park and Prem Krishna, the wife of my esteemed colleague Seren. So once they sort of passed through sort of a basic screening program, we then sort of processed the results, which I'll discuss in a moment. Here's a lovely shot of our secretary, a very busy pencil battery lady, who attended to all of our sort of daily requirements of being on time, for which we are deeply indebted. Thank you, Carol. This is just a quick few little snaps I'll take you through as to what I saw from the medical point. These were delightful little children, well-mannered, and the amazing part was they're always well-groomed. Their shirts are just been ironed, their clothes impeccable, considering the surroundings in this area. This was one of the early schools, and what I remember so much about this is that on the right side of the picture, that last little boy, just beneath that, there was a little piece of steel jutting out that Brenton had noticed, and we couldn't help but feel there must have been a lot of kids, as they're running along, must have scratched their ankles and gashed their feet. So as a part of the Rotary International workforce, we found a hammer and flattened it, so no longer will any children's feet be cut by this protruding piece of metal. So we should include that in this part of the project. This is our friend Seppi Lopati here, assisting us with the evaluation of the kids' ears. And what struck me in particular, the amount of accumulated material in the ears that can be described as wax, watermelon seeds, and the other little odd objects, which I think is a reflection that maybe there not be enough primary health care in this area. That was my week, my desk, my tabletop. Probably got a drip, probably was. And basically, we made with the furniture that we had. The testing technique, basically, as soon as the child could hear a response through the audiometer, bingo, up goes the hands. And we were fairly confident that they could hear that sound, and therefore give us good reliability. I was just opening the laptop, and all of a sudden little kids came tearing around, and one in particular, for some reason, noticed I had a bunch of grapes on my front part. So we talked about berries, grapes, and nutrition for the next 10 minutes. As you can see, the guy with his fingers up. I told him that wasn't the right way, but he never understood that, so he pressed on. And also, this little shot here, you can see they were well dressed at times. Here's this little dude with the most immaculate Versace jacket, yet he's barefoot. Delightful. There was a shot here with the Prince surrendered, and there's the rest of the team. The guy sitting down in the corner, Steve Fly, he was tired, he was playing some sort of card game there. This is what I call yard duty. I thought it was beautiful. A little girl in the middle there with the straw brush. Here's another shot of the group, the average classroom we sort of work through. That's Prem, Christian. Notice that little child with a dripping eyelid, which was just sort of happened to be there. Obviously indicative of something behind that eye. This to me was one of the most gracious and heartwarming episodes of the whole trip. We'd been to the school, and as a part of their gratuity, if you like, they all went down to the social science room and cooked a plate of cakes and handed one to each one of us. An incredible experience. This is our assistant here from Adelaide Rotary Club. He was sort of basically representative for the AFL. You can see the football there. He's a real cool dude. I'm sorry the pointer's got, oh there it is. That was his drink for the morning, a coconut with a straw hanging out. And also you'll notice he's very sophisticated pen writing style. So the one with the flower on top. Very tropical. But he pretended to play with a machine called an audiometer. Lunchtime he would go out and play some sort of crap or whatever was playing. So that's again a review of how we did it. What did all this mean? That's a pie slice up of what we found. This is the normals out here. The part for the middle ear disease, I'm sure it's this one of those over here. Anyway, the bottom line is there was a significant amount of ear disease which is correctable. That was our homework, in which we got our studies. We indebted to Brenton Christian. She did a wonderful job on the numbers. That's just to show you so we can get our paycheck at the end of the day. That turned out about 490. Again, this was a team effort. There's another graphic representation. I think the take-home message that part of red in there, the various schools, is far too high for any standard. Most Western nations are of 0.5%, maybe 1% incidence. This is well above ones, double digits. Medically, that's the size of the inner ear, the cochlea, that's what we have to work. In order to get the sound in, you have to get the sound there through the middle ear. This is an example from as a shoulder well here. There's a bit of discharge there in the base of the ear canal. And that's what we sort of want to avoid. And now the next little horror stretch. This is an ear canal, not healthy. It's like the Himalayas. You've got that rutty sort of hole up there, the brain's up the top. There's a hole in the drum, a grossly abnormal, unkept ear. This here is the principle of the tubes that go into the middle ear in order to ventilate into that area. This is one of the first patients I saw. That is a complication, that's a complication of an infection coming out behind the ear. A 14-year-old boy with a discharge out of the ear. That's called cholesteatoma, and those little tubes I'll come back to are important as a prophylactic measure. This is one of our evenings we had with the group the last night. This is Toa here, lady in the background standing up, who's the paediatrician who also helped in our evaluation. This guy here is Say Labby, who's the senior ENT surgeon employed by the Ministry of Health in Tonga, and Seppi's his assistant. So we got all those results. We had a bit of a sting in our tail. So which was the pathway from here? We can either go back to Tonga in 6 or 12 months' time and see what those children were up to. But we decided to come out from under the lid and raise our voices. And as a result of a discussion between the group, we elected to have SEPI come out to Adelaide, spend 4 weeks with us in a sort of an intensive training and exposure program. The reason for the haste is that this was the first week of September. We had our first ear surgery course available to her starting last Friday. So that was the rush in order to bring her out here, and this club were very kind in providing airfares for SEPI to come to Adelaide and return. Alliance Française, pourquoi? I delivered my little talk about where I'd been to Tonga the weekly Alliance Française class, and I made mention how one of the members of the group had this concept of open your wallet for a grommet. The grommet is a little tube. I sort of blurred this out. One of the ladies in the audience afterwards came up to me and says, you know, John, I've got 6 children. I said, yeah, fine. Each one of them had 6 grommets, fine. And then she opened her wallet and gave me $50 to put towards any fund that we in Rotary would like to raise as the first donation for open your wallet for a grommet. And that was a term brought out by Tim Clark from Kidman Park. So I think we're on the way. We have SEPI here, and I'm sure that when she goes back to Tonga, she would acquire some pathology disease. So at this stage, I'd like to hand over to Brenton, and he'll give the version from the Rotarian aspect, which I think is a very important, a very humane way of showing what we've been up to. I'd like to introduce Brenton.
Thank you, John. I can only reiterate what John said. It was the most worthwhile trip. I know there's a few people here that had expressed interest in going, and I was the lucky one that did the training, was able to go. But if you get the opportunity, if this project does go ahead and continue, if you get the opportunity to take part, then I couldn't recommend it more highly. It was a fantastic thing to do. And the best part about it was that there was actually some tangible results, and you could see that we had achieved something and really done something worthwhile in the name of Rotary. There were 3 clubs involved. There were people from Prospect, of course, who Carol and her team really drove this. Some people from Kidman Park, and John and I from Adelaide. So on the 24th of August, there were a group of 8 of us there left and headed over to Tonga. Tonga is an independent country, and it's proudly independent. You or I or any foreigner or even foreign corporation can't buy property or land in Tonga. Everything there is owned by the locals, and they're very proud of that. And it's meant that the country has stayed pretty much as it was, fairly much unchanged. There's no multinational hotel chains or Woolworths or Coles supermarkets or anything like that there. So it's a really lovely place to visit, actually. The economy mainly based on subsistence farming, but their main contributor to the GDP is income from expats. Tongans living here or New Zealand or overseas, a lot in America, remitting money back to their families in Tonga. Some taro there, that's very much a staple of their diet. Root vegetables are very much a staple. I'm just giving a bit of general information about Tonga here. Each male, historically, when they reach the age of 18, gets granted 4 acres of land to grow food for their family. And I think they're starting to run out of those 4-acre plots now and coming up with a new scheme. But that's how it's traditionally been done. We've got some crops there growing under coconut palms. Fishing, of course, very much a staple. Still using very traditional trapping and netting methods. That photo is taken right by the capital, Nuku'alofa, where we were staying. Very religious privilege to do. It was a fantastic service at the Centenary Chapel there, probably attended by 1,000 or so people. And when you consider that there's about 70,000 living on this particular island, and there are literally churches on every corner, that's what everybody does on a Sunday, and it was quite refreshing actually to be in a community like that where things took place on a Sunday. The Mormon religion is quite strong there as well. That was a Wesleyan chapel that we went to. The first one, this is a Mormon temple. This is the palace. Tonga is also a kingdom. There's a relatively new king there. His brother unfortunately died, and he ascended to the throne earlier in the year. And that palace is right in the main centre. It's a coral island, surrounded by reefs, and it's obviously a wreck there, washed up on the reef a few years ago. That's a shot of the main street of Nuku'alofa, where we were staying. So as John said, we were picked up by the health department van each morning, taken to our school that we were visiting that morning. Children waited very patiently, very well behaved. John would set up his instruments in our allocated classroom. We had 3 stations really. There was John's spot, there was a spot where we were testing, looking in the ears for clarity, if they were needed clearing out. John spent most of his week clearing wax out of ears, and really enjoyed that, didn't you, John? It was great fun. Yeah. He's nodding there. About 25% of the kids needed to have that done before we could actually test their hearing, and then they moved over onto the audiometers to test that. We had a couple of ladies from the health department checking their weight and height before they're getting their hearing tested, so they had their charts there, waiting in the room. That's Anne, looking with the otoscope, they're just checking for clarity, and John cleaning some wax out. And then they moved over to the audiometer with the headphones on, and that's Stuart on the audiometer. We had to carry these audiometers in our hand luggage to get them there, so that was a bit of a trick as well, getting them on and off the plane. And one of the most difficulties with this process was explaining to the children to put their hand up when they heard the sound. There's a bit of a language barrier there. There are only year 1s and 2s. Some didn't have a tremendous grasp of English, and we certainly had no grasp of Tongan, so we had some local assistance there, Loretta, a nurse. That's the classic 2-handed recognition, and then the more subtle thumbs up there on that little girl. Carol there entering all the data was entered and is passed on to the hospital. That's our morning tea. See the coconut straw is very much the go. In Tonga, that's the team Amanaki. There in the centre down the front of the beard, he was the president of the local Rotary Club there, and also had previously lived in Adelaide and was very instrumental in getting this off the ground in Tonga and making the arrangements over there. The kids were just delightful. Lunch break gave us a chance to go out and interact with the children a bit, which was great fun. And then in the afternoon we set up in another school and do it all again. We tested about 500 children all up, as John said. We had the opportunity to attend a local Rotary Club of Tonga meeting on the Wednesday night, where Carol gave a talk about what we were doing, and John presented the club pennant and a bottle of wine from some obscure winery, wasn't it, John? to Amanaki. And the great thing about this was they actually do have the facilities to treat these problems in Tonga. They have a very modern, brand new hospital with soundproof hearing testing booth. So they can actually treat these problems, but there was nobody going out diagnosing them. So a lot of kids had problems, and John was saying a lot of these kids would have been in a lot of pain, weren't you, John, when you saw them? And they can be fixed. You just need somebody to go out and do this work. Just a couple more shots of the hospital there. And John made me put this in. This is the last slide. But we did have a game of tennis with Amanaki and the Attorney General, a game of doubles on our last morning. John very graciously allowed the Attorney General
Rotarians guest, I'd just like to introduce you to Seppi the party, and we've made reference to Seppi. Just quickly, Seppi, how long have you been here for now? How long do you plan on staying?
I'm only here for 4 weeks, so I came last Tuesday, so I'm here 1 week and 3 months to go.
How are things going so far here?
Things really good. I've been learning a lot. I've been attending a few different courses and attending to Mr. Stuart Krishnan and Mr. Tomich. And I've also learned some of the tutorials and lectures by the registrars. So it's a very very educational trip, and I'm very grateful for this.
Thank you. Well, I think we're on the way. Thank you very much.
I don't think we have time for any questions, but I think this is an example of the great work that Rotary is doing internationally, and our club in association with other clubs in our district. And I didn't have the opportunity to actually acknowledge Carl Walsh at the beginning as a Rotarian from Prospect. And this was an activity that was a joint effort with several Rotary clubs in our district. So once again, I ask you to join with me in thanking John, Brenton, Peter and Carol.